That indeed is the sound of the Hot Summer Jazz Festival rippling out over the lines here. They're all invisible, those lines. That was Frank Morgan and that wonderful shading and tonal focus, and it's sweet, warm, and happy, and it was Thelonious Monk's Mood. And Ronnie Matthews and Essiet and Billy Hart supporting Frank Morgan. Frank Morgan has come back to live in this area. He was born in Minneapolis in December in 1933, and he's a resident here now in the year 2006, and he'll be a part of the presentations of the Hot Summer Festival. Circle this date right now, Friday, June 23rd. Set your clock at 7 p.m., He'll be joined by Herbie Lewis on bass and John Weber on piano and Kevin Washington on drums and David Young on trumpet. Frank Morgan, thank you for staying with us. It's good to have you there. Good to make your acquaintance.
Well, thank you very much.
It's been a long time, but I'm looking back to the 1950s, and I interviewed Charlie Parker at that time by telephone. And I asked him about some of the young artists appearing on the scene, and this flashes to Los Angeles, I believe, and he mentions Chet Baker, and he mentions Frank Morgan. When did you first encounter Charlie Parker?
Well, it must have been, let's see, I was 7 years, must have been 1941, 40 or 41.
How old were you?
I was 7 years old.
And you were working on a musical instrument and playing it?
Yes, I was playing guitar. My father was a guitarist.
And he appeared with the Ink Spots, didn't he?
Yes, he did, yeah.
My. Well, now, do you remember that meeting with Parker?
Oh, very much so. I mean, for all of my life, it's been very clear. First, my father took me to hear the J. McShann Orchestra as part of my continuing musical education that he was always doing. He wanted me to hear all the bands, Duke Ellington, and he took me to hear Andres Segovia, a great guitarist. And my father, I guess he had hopes of me being a great guitarist sometime. But he said later, he told me that when Charlie Parker stood up to take his first solo in the J. McShann Orchestra, I think it was a tune, later I found out it was a tune called Hootie Blues. When Charlie Parker finished his solo, my father said that I turned to him and said, Dad, that's it for the guitar, that's what I want to play right there,
And so from guitar to saxophone?
Yeah, I went to clarinet first, actually. Charlie Parker insisted I start on clarinet, which I'm very grateful for that. The wisdom of that escaped me at the time. I mean, it was, clarinet to clarinet, you have to learn about control just to stop it from squeaking, before you can talk about playing it, And that's been very helpful to me all my life.
It's developed a sound that is just incredible. At any rate, I thought we would listen to a piece of music with Parker on it, and it probably goes back to the California time when Parker was mentioning who were the new lights on the scene, and you were one of them. But here was, I'm sure, a piece of music that crossed your ear. Frank Morgan.
Oh man, that's Moose to Mooch.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And
I later I became I was turned out to be friends with Moose. Moose, the gentleman who the tune was written for.
And who is he?
Well, he was a character not a character. He was a guy who sold records. He went around to all the barber shops and everything and sold jazz records. I mean, I think that he didn't sell anything with bebop records. And became familiar with all the musicians. Everyone in town knew him, and he was a legendary character, one of those guys out of the past.
And no doubt you have great memories in this group. Lucky Thompson on tenor.
Oh, man. That Lucky Thompson is just... He taught a very good friend of mine, Walter Benton, another saxophone player from California, whom one of my early records I recorded with him with three quarters of the Modern Jazz Quartet. Walter Benton on tenor saxophone, and Gerald Wiggins piano, Milt Jackson vibes, and Kenny Clark drums, and Percy Heath bass, and myself.
And yourself.
Yes.
Oh, what a reservoir of memories you have.
Oh, well, it's been a beautiful life. It is a beautiful life.
Frank, I'd like to talk to you, say around 11:30 or so, and we'll explore another aspect of your life where it touched on in the worlds of Hilton, Ruiz, and
oh man, yes.
and John Hicks.
Yes.
And your memories of these important contributors.
Yes.
And we'll make a date with you for Friday, June 23rd at 7 o'clock there on the mall adjacent to Orchestra Hall. And I just want to say how good to have you living back in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and traveling the world.
Well, it certainly is a pleasure to be with my family. And my broader family also. Minneapolis is really beautiful. I didn't know it was this great. I probably would have been here a long time ago.
I see. Well, what a pleasure to have you beating the drum for our locale. We'll meet you around 11:30 Central Time.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure talking with you.
Look forward to talking to you. You have a wealth of memories.
We share them anyway. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frank, for staying up with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Believe me.
Well, I want to just, cover an area with you. This new project, this new CD, and the artists involved. You might tell us a little bit about it. I know it'll be found soon in the High Note catalog on release.
Yes, I think it will be released the 27th of this month. Advanced copies are already out to, I guess, all the proper places. But well, it's live in it's actually my first opportunity to record live at a very legendary place with a legendary person, Rudy Van Gelder Studios in Hackensack, New Jersey.
Oh, yes.
Yes, and it's a beautiful studio just to see it, and the sounds that have come out of that studio for many years. I guess rate some of the best music in jazz.
And of course, Rudy Van Gelder is noted for practically, along with Alfred Lyon and Francis Wolff, building the Blue Note catalog.
Right. And it's such a pleasure, it's such an honor just to be invited to record there. Well, the result is a CD that probably has a better sound than any CD I've ever had of my own,
That's quite a statement from the artist.
Well, it's true, and I believe it to be true. I know it sure makes you feel good just to record there,
Well, Frank, we want to mention and underscore the fact that you have moved back. You're a resident of Minnesota, the land of Lakes Country, in Minneapolis, where you were born in 1933.
Yes, and I left Minnesota when I was 6 years old. I moved to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and at 14 I moved to California, and at 71 years old I moved back to Minnesota, and it's really great. Had I known it was this great, I probably would have been here sooner.
I'm talking with Frank Morgan. He's our guest of the night, and he, of course, is a part of the 8th Annual Twin Cities Jazz Festival, underway now in Minneapolis and St. Paul. Frank, as we look around the country and your own experiences, there are two musicians out there that you've worked with that we've lost just recently. And I wanted to play this piece of music, and we'll identify him. And if you could just sort of help us all relate to this performing artist, the pianist and composer, Hilton Ruiz.
Oh, man.
Well, I programmed just a slice of a composition written by Hilton Ruiz. We lost him on Tuesday, June 6th in the year 2006. He died in New Orleans, and we unfortunately lost a very important and versatile man. You worked with him quite a bit.
Yes, and I was just thinking, the first time I worked with Hilton, it was in New Orleans. We were down to do the early jazz fest. I get to use it to have the artists come down and go to different schools.
Which was really a project established by all of the board of the Jazz Heritage Festival.
Yes, it's a beautiful, beautiful foundation. And Hilton and I were sent out, the two of us, to play at Southern University to do a master class there. And Hilton was part of a rhythm section of Idris Muhammad and Curtis Lundy on bass, Gary Bartz on alto, and Boppy Watson and myself.
A collection of very, very important musicians.
Yes, such a pleasure to play with all those guys. And as a result of that, Hilton and I went to New Orleans to play this part of the festival, and we played at Southern University, and we did a duo, and we played almost the whole hour that we were doing the master class, and then we asked if there were any questions. And it was such a beautiful experience playing with Hilton that we ended up playing several duo, gigs together, and we became very good friends. And it's really, really hard to lose someone like that, particularly right after less than 3 or 4 weeks after another pianist that I worked with,
John Hicks.
John Hicks. In fact, John and I just closed at Lincoln Center on the 23rd of May, of April. I'm sorry. We did 14 sold-out performances there. John Hicks, Victor Lewis, and Curtis Lundy. And John died, in 3 or 4 days after we closed there.
And he passed away, as I have right before me, on May 10th in New York City.
Okay, yeah.
Let's listen to just a few measures and bars of a salute that John presented in memory of Earl Hines.
Oh.
That was, of course, Earl Father Hines' composition, Rosetta, and John interpreting. He was an important figure on the field, too.
Oh, man. Just very, very important. I mean, both of these guys, I don't think they make them like that anymore, with few exceptions, John had, I had more, I guess I played with John a little more often than I played with Hilton. To lose them both within a span of a few weeks, it's just terrible. To lose them ever, But you said they were important, and that's an understatement.
It is an understatement. You might just briefly, a legacy that Hilton Ruiz left for us. What would you say is
Well, Hilton told me personally that he was a protege of Mary Lou Williams. From the time he was in his early teens or something.
My, what a statement that is.
Yeah, and that there was a great human being. So he came from good stuff all the way. I mean, he was. I don't know how to say it any more than I miss you, Hilton. I miss you, John.
And John Hicks, you might describe, your observations of his legacy.
Well, John, to my knowledge, played with probably a bigger variety of people over his the span of his career. I first heard John with Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers. He took I think McCoy Tyner's place with the group, and that was in the mid '60s, early '60s, and I heard him in L.A. And I didn't play with John until maybe mid '80s, or the late '80s even. Because I'm kind of a late bloomer. Oh, I really miss him.
My, I know this is not easy for you. I just wanted to say that for all of us here, it is so good to have you back living in this community with people who transplants like Herb Lewis and so many others.
Oh yeah, I'm really happy about Herbie. Herbie's been in the hospital for the past 6 months.
And recovering.
And he's recovering, and he's doing beautiful. And he lives just around the corner from me. And we're becoming, real good friends again. We were kind of raised in L.A. around, with Billy Higgins and those guys, Don Cherry, Bobby Hutcherson, and he went to New York and really did great for himself with McCoy Tyner, among many others.
And recorded in that same influence under Rudy Van Gelder.
Yes, of course, yes. Yeah, he knows that studio well when I was talking to him about it. And I'm so happy that he's well and I'm getting a chance to play with him after many years. It's been several years since I played with Herbie.
Yes. Well, Herbie will be on stand with you, Frank Morgan, and John Weber out of Chicago on piano.
Yes, I'm looking forward to meeting John. I talked with John just before. In fact, we're going to get together and do a little rehearsing the day before the concert. And I'm also going to meet David Young for the first time.
Thank you very much, Frank Morgan, for joining us tonight and helping to fill out our picture of jazz.
Thank you for having me, and God bless you.
We'll meet you on stand. Thank you.
Thank you. Peace
Friday, June 23rd, 7 at 11th Street and Nicollet Mall, downtown Minneapolis, the PV Plaza.
Thank you very much. I look forward to it.